well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started then, everyone. It is 9:30, so I'd like to call the April 6th HHS committee meeting to order. We do not have a physical quorum, so under 7E of OMA, members can participate virtually. We do have the requisite officers present and at our regular meeting location. Online and in-person public comment are provided for. We have health protocols in the room, and so all of our votes are going to be roll call votes. Roll call, please.
Chair Renahan?
Here.
Vice Chair Swarzy?
Here.
Member Selmans?
Here.
Member Chaplin?
Here.
Member Desart?
Here.
Member LaPlante?
Here. Okay, thank you. We do have one public comment. I'd like to welcome Rachel Jimenez, College of DuPage student, has given us a record of attendance only. So thank you. No other public comment. So I just like to say, I hope everyone had a good spring break or holiday weekend or whatever you did. Out there, weather's turned nice. I hope everyone's had a chance to read through the memo that we had from Jim McGuire from procurement. He was able to address some of our strategies in terms of why we use multiple agencies at the care center, and he's here today to answer any questions as we go along. I think it's important distinction to keep in mind that the amounts that the county board approves as far as agencies are contingency only, and they are far less than was actually spent by the care center, and the care center has to stay within its budgets anyway. So I did ask Janelle Chadwick to walk us through some of the historical variances we've had in terms of what the county board has approved and what has actually been spent by the care center. And I will add myself and Vice Chair Swarzy and our Director Chadwick are going to meet to discuss recruitment initiatives and employment at the care center. And I'd like to remind everyone that collective bargaining is underway between the county and the union at this time. So also for our new members, I'm not sure that you know in terms of the care center, they have taken reduction after reduction in terms of county support. And last year it was $1 million reduction in what they were provided. And that support level is a policy decision for our board, for our county board. So keep that in mind when you talk about, what people should be paid or this kind of thing. I mean, ultimately it is a decision in terms of allocation, budgeting countywide. So I would like to thank Janelle and her staff. They worked very hard to keep the center thriving, and we know it has been a stressful year in terms of health and certainly in finances with that reduction in $1 million. Also like to thank Member Selman and Member LaPlante for their awareness and vaccinating staff over at the care center. No doubt it's been a quandary as far as how far an employer can go in the interest of safety of others. And I've spoken with HR and I've spoken with our state's attorney's office on this question. And at this point, I'm going to defer to our assistant state's attorney, William Young, to give us the latest legal advice on the subject.
All right. I see that I am on the screen. And thank you, Shanahan, for an opportunity just to, even though the question hasn't been formally tendered for our office to answer, I did think it would be proactive to provide a legal opinion as to what extent an employer should or could mandate vaccination at this time. So this question has been widely circulated and documented and has come to a strong consensus that's been formed amongst law firms that specialize in labor and employment, blogs, scholarly articles, and even down to national and local newspapers. So the general framework that we have to understand is that there's kind of a big funnel here that you generally need a consensus before, or you need to provide consent before medical treatment can be given to you. That's kind of like the general framework, the general funnel here. And within that, this wide framework, there's kind of a small little area or exception that deals with employers and employees. And that's where we have what we have talked about in the past, where hospital employers or healthcare provider employers may mandate or require vaccination of, for example, the flu shot. However, within this, there's also a smaller exception here that deals with the American ADA and First Amendment religion. So where if that becomes an issue, you cannot mandate it. So that's kind of the general framework. So within that, I also want to provide kind of a timeline that brings us to our question today about COVID mandatory vaccination and whatnot. So here's the timeline. So we've had this general funnel, and then within that, in December 11th, 2020, the FDA issued the Emergency Use Act for 2 COVID vaccines. That was for Pfizer and Moderna. Then in December 16, the EEOC issued guidance, which is not law, but they issued guidance for employers who want to mandate employees for vaccination. It's important to note, though, that the EEOC has specifically stated themselves, as has been documented by case law, that their Q&A section, which is where this is coming from, cannot be relied on by employers. And then they basically said, we're not liable if you rely on this guidance. This is only guidance. It is not law. During that guidance, they also, again, stressed the ADA and First Amendment religion exceptions. Then following that, on February 28th, 2021, there's a lawsuit that was filed in federal court, and I'll get to that in a second because, which kind of coincided with this lawsuit. The FDA in early March 2021 also issued comments. Basically, their comments was that new vaccines should be administered voluntarily, that under the Emergency Use Act section of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, it requires the Secretary of the Health and Human Services, HSS, to ensure that individuals to whom the product is administered are informed of their option to accept or refuse administration of the product. Again, because this is under the Emergency Use Act, there's much broader, because under the Emergency Use Act, there's broader requirements, or it's not as, we are still doing trials and it's all still tested. So the FDA is basically saying,
I'm sorry, if I could stop you, I want to be really very careful. Please do not make comments about what FDA regulations imply about safety, efficacy, or testing of vaccines, because that's not accurate, and I do not want that to be put on public record as fact. There's not any safety concerns for those who have had it approved. They're not ongoing studies to say that it is safe. They're expanding the pool. So I just want to be so clear, and I very much appreciate the analysis you're giving because it's incredibly helpful, but just making sure we're characterizing FDA language very carefully.
okay, I appreciate it. Well, again, I'll just restate that the comments were that the Secretary, the emergency use, the FDA specifically states in their recent comment that the Secretary of Health and Human Services needs to ensure that individuals to whom the product is administered are informed of the option to accept or refuse administration of the product. That's basically their comment. And again, the reason why they made this comment coincides with this lawsuit called Logretta versus Fernando. This case is a lawsuit where an employee of the Donna Ana County Detention Center is suing both the county as well as the detention center for mandating the vaccination. The case is still pending, and there has been no decision. But that is possibly, the timing does coincide with one another. I'm not saying what influence, I don't know. I'm just saying that the timing does coincide with each other. I think I would be remiss if I didn't inform the committee about the PREP Act. This is the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, which was enacted in December of 2005. And this act was created to protect and create a fund to compensate those injured by vaccines, specifically under the Emergency Use Act. Again, this was not necessarily created with COVID in mind. It was actually created in 2005 following the 9/11 attacks. And the idea was at that time, Congress kind of foresaw that should there be a need to approve certain drugs under the Emergency Use Act, that they would have a fund in place for those injured. So with that in mind, the question here is, should or could the county mandate vaccination to its employees? And the consensus, again, amongst all of these, those I've mentioned, law firms, legal experts, professors, and whatnot, generally is that you could, but you probably shouldn't. And this is very much the consensus. In fact, I went to a recent presentation on this from a law firm, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of employers present. And the general statistic was they did a poll, and they found that 70% of employers were encouraging but not mandating, and about 20-some% were not even promoting it, and then you had about 3% who were mandating it. So the company would only be about 3%. I just have a few more comments, and then okay.
Let's let our assistant state's attorney, put on the presentation. This is really not up for debate or discussion right now. We're still in, Chairman's remarks. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I would just point out that the FDA has made clear that it would go against the legislative intent of the Emergency Use Act for hospitals or government bodies to mandate vaccination on a private person. I'm not talking necessarily about employer-employee, but that definitely creates enough pause for us to kind of think about what are the implications here. And we should be wary of making vaccination 100% mandatory at this time. We should take into account that the EOC has made it explicitly clear that there are exceptions under the ADA and First Amendment. The IDPH has yet to provide instruction. And again, every labor employment firm has weighed in on this issue, has cautioned against mandatory vaccination, and in fact promoted a pragmatic, collaborative approach, which is what I think most people would agree to. As stewards of the county and the public, we are responsible to maintain a balance between public safety and individual civil rights. We shouldn't be the ones rushing to the courthouse to be the test case here. There is one right now underway. We should probably monitor that very carefully and see how that resolves itself. But again, there is a lawsuit pending because of this very issue, and we should think about that as we make our decisions moving forward.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This is not an easy subject, as we know. I mean, there's nothing simple about this. And now the Care Center is actually having family visits, and we certainly can't mandate that everybody who visits a relative has had the vaccination either. So we're kind of getting into some muddied waters. So I do appreciate your helping us out a little bit with that. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
May I ask a clarifying question, Member Renahan?
Sure.
Thank you. When you went through the statistics at the end and you were saying certain percentage, was that only healthcare workers or was that all employers? Because that's a really different conversation.
Of course. So that statistic that I mentioned, that was all employers in a presentation. So I don't want to, again, I am just kind of telling you what the law says and
Correct.
What is currently going on. That this is a rolling timeline, and I am just kind of laying out for you the timeline and things that we should monitor.
And then for our current employees in the Care Center, do we require TB tests and flu shots? Or what do we currently require that's not COVID related?
Do we have Janelle? Is Janelle here?
She's on.
Yes,
She's
we
away.
require flu shots with the exceptions of medical,
And religious, of course, yep.
correct. And then also tuberculosis tests, correct.
So someone they can't say, I won't take a TB test.
Correct. Or they
Okay.
could get a chest x-ray or blood. I mean, there's multiple ways they
But
can
they have to
get
prove
tests.
they don't have tuberculosis. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
I just want to reiterate, my concern is not, these are our most vulnerable patients in this building. And this is a healthcare facility. And this is a very different standard than what we're doing with the clerk's office or with our sheriff's office, who I know have been incredibly prudent in making sure they get their vaccines. There's going to be exceptions. I do not want to take the exception of the law's on our side, we can just ignore this. That's not what we're here to do. We are here to provide oversight and make sure we are providing the best care. And if that means going through and figuring out what the legalities are to figure out how we can get the most people required, that's an extremely fruitful case. But we have to remember who is actually being served in this building of the Care Center and why this responsibility is so high for us, because it's our most vulnerable in our county. It's people who may not have the opportunity to get COVID themselves before the vaccine before they get there. We simply have to think of this as we are protecting the most vulnerable in our county. So I hear the arguments about not wanting to get sued. I certainly don't want to waste money on lawsuits, but I also want to make sure we are doing everything in our power so that we are not the test case of what goes wrong if we have too many people refusing to get the vaccine. So I want to thank our state's attorney for that very thorough timeline. I found that very helpful, but I just want to make sure we keep the focus of what our job here is, and it's our most vulnerable residents. Thank you, Chair Renahan.
Thank you, Member Solomon. I'm going to let Member Chaplin say one quick thing, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Renahan. So it's my understanding, and I totally agree. I mean, you know, we should be encouraging people to get vaccinations. And honestly, I think Janelle and the Care Center have done an excellent job at getting people vaccinated because they're at 80% already, which is much higher than any healthcare industry. But we also do have to be cognizant of the laws. And as long as that vaccination is under emergency use authorization, it is my understanding it cannot be mandated. Only a licensed vaccination can be mandated. So until this, the Pfizer and the Moderna and the Johnsons are licensed vaccinations, we cannot mandate. We can be sued if we start putting a mandate out. And in fact, when you get the vaccination, there's a form that says that, you know, organizations are free to encourage vaccinations through internal communication and educational events and through other major measures to urge employees to be vaccinated. They can take these measures so long as they are not viewed as coercive. The organizations make clear that the decision regarding whether to receive the vaccination is voluntary, and measures comply with requirements in the emergency use authorization and the related regulations for these products. So as much as we want to see everybody vaccinated, while these are under emergency use authorization, it is my understanding they cannot be mandated. And that's the law. Until they're licensed, I don't believe you can mandate it. But like I said, Janelle is encouraging her employees to get vaccinated. We have over 80% at that convalescent center now vaccinated, which I said is much higher than many other healthcare industries. So still encourage, still move forward with it. But, you know, as much as we like to mandate it, I think we just can't do it at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna hold any further conversation suggesting maybe we go to old business as we work through our schedule. I mean, no doubt we could have as a favorite word around here, robust conversation, but we need to do the work of the committee right now. So I'd like to turn it over, I think, to Mary here, Mary Keating. We have a length of service award. Oh wait, no, we have to approve the minutes. I'm sorry, I apologize. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right, do we have a
Second, Chaplain.
Thank you. Questions, additions on the minutes? All right, roll call, please.
Member Schwarze,
Aye.
Member Selman,
Aye, sorry.
Member Chaplin,
Aye.
Member Desart, Member LaPlante,
Aye.
and Chair Renahan.
Aye. Those are approved. So I'm turning over to Mary Keating. Congratulations, Julie Burdick, 20 years as a homeless management information systems person.
Good morning. Yeah, I want to congratulate Julie Burdick. Julie started 20 years ago as a case manager in our housing supports and self-sufficiency unit. She proved herself to be highly competent in the software system that we were required to begin utilizing probably 10 or 15 years ago. Julie then transitioned to be our lead person for our homeless management information system. For the just a little background, HMIS is HUD requires any community receiving funds for homeless services to utilize the homeless management information system. So there's about 16 or 17 different agencies in DuPage County that use this coordinated system. Julie and her staff are responsible for the training of all the end users. They're responsible for all the reporting, making sure that everything that we're doing is in compliance. She does a tremendous job. And I think because she started in the case management world and has moved over to the software world. She has really a tremendous command of both sides of that equation. She really understands from the end, because the end users of this system are case managers. So she really does a great job kind of translating between the two worlds. I'll let Gina say a couple words. Gina Stratford Ahmed is our administrator of intake and referral, and Gina is Julie's supervisor.
Yeah, Julie's a fantastic employee. If you want something done right, you go to her. And I rely on her for many things. She's great with reporting, and great with data. I hope that all of you can take a look at our homeless information, and she's the one who puts that together for our continuum from our database. So I want to thank her for doing such a fantastic job. And Mary, I'm going to correct you. She started out as an INR specialist.
Oh, then she was a case manager.
And someone stole her from me within 6 months of her hire date. So that tells you how great of an employee she's been. So thank you very much, Julie, for your 20 years. And we hope to have you for a few more.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it, and it's gone by fast. That's all I can say. Surprisingly. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Congratulations. I will ask for a motion to combine DuPage Care Center requests A1, 2, and 3.
So moved, Chaplain.
Second.
Any questions on combining those? Roll call, please.
Member Chaplin?
Aye.
Member Dessart? Member LaPlante?
Aye.
Member Swarzy?
Aye.
Member Selman?
Aye.
And Chair Renahan.
All right, those are combined. I'll entertain a motion to approve HHSP 7721 contract for prescription supply for secondary pharmaceuticals in-house closed shop pharmacy, May 21st, 2021. May 2022, not to exceed 170,000. FMP 7621 contract to comment for electrical utility distribution connected to county facilities, April 14th, 2021 to April 3rd, 2024, not to exceed 3 million, but of that $545,389.60 is for the care center. And a change order HHSP 321-8-20 amendment for resolution HHSP 321-20 point click care technologies for electronic health care record software system, November 25th, 2020 to November 24th, 2025, adding a monthly subscription for practitioner lab and radiology integration to increase $82,506.05. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Chaplain.
Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Member Swarzy?
Aye.
Member Selman?
Aye.
Member Chaplin?
Aye.
Member Dessart? Member LaPlante?
Aye.
And Chair Renahan.
Aye. Those items are approved. I'll take a motion to combine DuPage Care Center requests that require parent committee approval. B1, 2, and 3. Do I have a motion to combine?
So moved, Chaplain.
Second.
Second, thank you. Questions, comments on combining? A roll call, please.
Member Chaplin?
Aye.
Member Dessart? Member LaPlante?
Aye.
Member Swarzy?
Aye.
Member Selman?
Aye.
Chair Renahan.
Aye. Those are combined. I will ask for a motion to approve 2021-30 purchase order with Easy Way for repair and maintenance of patient lifters, June 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2022, not to exceed 21,000. 2021-31 contract purchase orders for Red Sail Technologies for software and software maintenance for the data system pharmacy department, May 1st, 2021 through April 30th, 2022, not to exceed 22,000. And finally, 2021-32 for Ecolab laundry chemicals for the care center, April 24th, 2021 to April 23rd, 2022, not to exceed $29,000.
So moved, Chaplain.
Thank you. Questions or comments on any of these items? All right, roll call, please.
Member Swarzy?
Aye.
Member Selman?
Aye.
Member Chaplin?
Aye.
Member Dessart? Member LaPlante?
Aye.
Chair Renahan.
Aye. Those are approved. Moving on to the informational item, do we have to vote on that? we vote on that or no? Okay. We have an informational item, electricity bid. Nick?
I think most members have already heard, but we were fortunate enough, we just opened up our bids for electricity, locked in for the next 3 years fixed pricing, really good pricing, very happy with it. So we have budget stability, and we'll probably from past years, we're going to save about 300, a little bit over 300,000 over the next 3 years. So we're very happy with the rates we're able to lock in. And one of the benefiting agencies as part of that is the care center, because they obviously have a big demand here on campus. So all the different agencies, transportation, facilities, public works that are affected by this bid, it's going as informational. No action needed.
All right, thank you, Nick Patmeyer. Moving to residency waivers. I don't think we have any today.
No.
No? All right, Janelle Chadwick, DuPage Care Center update.
Hi, good morning. For an update, I also want to mention a comment on the topic that was discussed earlier, and I know it might be discussed in old business, but I just want to make sure we are also regulated by the Illinois Department of Public Health. And I had a conversation with them specifically on the vaccination topic. It sounds as though there might be something coming from them on mandating, but it's not there yet. And they've advised us to hold until we receive that actual guidance. My personal opinion, I support that. We haven't had a positive case in over 28 days, but our 2 cases prior were unvaccinated people. And anytime we have an unvaccinated person or anyone that tests positive now going forward, we have to go back to stage 1, which means our residents are in their rooms longer. The visitation now has to stop. We just received some updated guidance last Friday, which the state is asking for additional clarification from CMS because it is very ambiguous. They're now saying that if we have one facility onset case, meaning a staff member that may have worked here once in the last 2 weeks, everybody has to wear an N95, all the staff. So, and we have to suspend communal dining anywhere we've gone with small group activities, and also visitation. So it went from being somewhat opening up to a whole different direction of stringent. And now we're going to have to stop, drop, and figure out how to fit test additional staff for these N95s. We have about a good chunk of our staff that worked with COVID on the COVID unit. They were all fit tested. We worked with FM. They were great in helping us with that. Now we have to expand that further, and it's a significant challenge to do that. So that's where we're at now with these new regs and trying to get a clarification on the interpretation. So hopefully it won't be that, because like I said, if one person tests positive, it just rolls back everything. And I could tell you these visits have been emotionally wonderful and heartbreaking all at the same time. When I was here on Easter, when I was rounding, I had residents that wanted to hug me, and I don't want to get emotional. They want the human touch. And so anything we can do, I support that. But the other component, if we mandated vaccines, and we have about 95 staff that are not currently vaccinated, say we lost 50% of those staff because they say, I don't want to work, I don't want to be vaccinated, I refuse, I'm going to go work somewhere else, which they could go down the street and work. That would have a significant impact on our ability to provide care. So there's a lot of components to this, and I have my own personal opinions and support, and I'm trying to share some of that with not sharing some of that. But I just want to lay that out there before I talk about the agency. Do you have any questions, or we can save that for old business?
Member Shorzy?
Hi, Janelle. I'm just confirming all the residents have been vaccinated. Is that correct?
No, actually, no, we're about 95%. And
95,
technically
okay.
right now on record, we have 75% of our staff. Health department has been wonderful. We sent 20 more individuals over there that are in the process. They should be getting their second shot. And once we receive their documented completion, we would be at 80%.
Okay. And the 95%, those 5%, they're choosing not to be vaccinated?
Right, either that, the individual themselves or their power of attorney,
Okay.
depending on their cognition.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Go ahead, Janelle.
Okay, so the document I shared with everyone, I wanted to walk through what we do as far as sending contract approval through the county board versus our budget versus what we spend. So the highlighted yellow column shows you from going back to 2016. When we asked the county board for contract amounts, it's an amount to give wiggle room for whoever vendor we might get. So prior years, we only had 2 or 3 agency vendors, and they've not been able to help us sufficiently. So this year we went to 4 agency vendors, and you can see the amount. So like back in 2016, we asked the board for 1.4 million in agency. So you can see those amounts. Last year, we asked the board for 1.7. But when you go to the first column, because the care center has a revenue and expense budget that has to match, we can't go over our expenses. So you can see our fiscal year budget for agency. This is what we've asked for in dollars. And then you can see the next column is what we spent annually in agency. Then the next column, I just provided a variance there. So I'm wanting to provide some clarity. Asking for 1.7 doesn't mean we're going to need 1.7. We pray we don't. And if you look at the history, we likely won't. However, if our census goes back up and our ability to hire and recruit, we could actually use our fiscal budget or maybe even over. But right now, if you look, we've used $2,000 in the first 4 months. So if you annualize that, we're looking at about a $6,000 of agency expense where we are right now. However, our census is going up, so I would expect that number to rise. Does that help provide some clarity?
That helps me quite a bit. Do we have any questions, comments from our committee members for Janelle or for Jim McGuire here in procurement?
Thank you, Janelle.
All right, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything
I
else?
think-
Anything else by way of update?
Nope, I think I covered everything. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Mary Keating, Community Services update.
I just have a couple of quick things. We are continuing to move forward on the IDA Emergency Rent Assistance Program. I did get an email while I was just sitting here that there may be a pushback on the launch date, so I will absolutely keep the board up to speed. In the meantime, however, last week we had a great meeting with the Eviction Mediation Committee that's been formed over at the courthouse. We're talking about both sort of short-term partnership as well as a long-term partnership. Short-term being making sure that anyone who comes to eviction court during the period of time that the IDA portal is open is fully supported and getting access to those funds. The attorneys who are on that committee are very excited to get the information out to their landlord clients about rent assistance that's coming down the pike. So, and then after this large tidal wave of emergency rent assistance is gone through, we have many other sources of rent assistance. So, kind of talking about figuring out a way that we could perhaps have a case manager in eviction court, or somehow really connecting very closely to this mediation process. So I want to thank Judge McCloskey for reaching out and getting us connected to his eviction mediation coordinator. So that was a really good meeting, and I think we've got some exciting things coming forward on that. We're a little bit in a hurry up and wait situation with a lot of our funds, one of which is the new funding for water bills that came from the December COVID relief and appropriations. That's going to come through the state. The state's indicated then that's going to come through the CSBG program. We haven't heard anything on how much funding we'll get for that program, but we do anticipate having that sometime, perhaps in the summer, if not in the fall. In the meantime, we're using some of our regular CSBG funds to help people pay water bills. We had a great meeting with Nick and Sean Reese, just to kind of get a lay of the land. As you may know, there's 45 different water providers in the county. So we've helped residents get connected to, I think, 39 of those vendors who have received at least one payment from us. So we're making sure that the word is out that low-income homeowners who are behind on their water bills can get assistance too. So that's all the updates I have.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to old business. Do you have any old business? Can we make a notation in our minutes, though, that Member Desart did have her hand up during the chairman's remarks. We didn't get to her and she had to leave, but she was trying to say something. Okay, make that notation. Thank you. Do you have any new business? New business, I have been asked to mention from the environmental committee that we are trying to reduce consumption of styrofoam. So Janelle's not here, so I'll have to mention it to her separately, but thinking about the care center and let's try not to use styrofoam. So with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second, thank you. We'll roll call, please.
Member Schwarzy.
Aye.
Member Solomon.
Aye.
Member Chaplin. Member Desart. Member LaPlante.
Aye.
Chair Renahan.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.